Welcome to Chinese History and Mythology.
Hello friends, welcome back to Chinese History and Mythology. Last time, we took a journey through the Book of Songs, the Shijing, from the work songs of Zhou farmers, to the quiet and shy love between young people, to the homesickness and frustration of soldiers. We heard the heartbeat of ordinary people who lived 3,000 years ago. That episode was about how people felt the world. Today we will look from a different angle. On the very same timeline, two other voices were quietly speaking to those ancient songs. One voice was the gentle murmur of Lao Zi. Standing at the edge of a world where rituals were breaking down, he asked a question: how should the world truly operate? The other was the calm and calculating voice of Sun Zi. Standing between the army camp and the battlefield, he asked another question: how do we survive in a harsh and brutal reality? And how do we avoid losing lives while still avoiding defeat? If the Shijing is the emotional record of the Zhou Dynasty, the Tao Te Ching is a book about the fundamental rules of the universe and society, and the art of war is a guide for how humans should act when conflict is unavoidable. Today, we will divide the episode into two major parts. In the first part, we talk about the Tao Te Ching. We will look at what Lao Zi was resisting and whether the idea of Wu Wei means doing nothing or something very different. In the second part, we talk about the art of war and why this book, praised by military academies around the world, is far more than a guide for fighting battles. If you are ready, we will begin with the classic that is almost shockingly short. The Tao Te Ching, Part 1. Lao Zi and the Tao Te Ching. Searching for another path in a world that was falling apart. One who was Lao Zi, and what was troubling him. First, let us remove Lao Zi from the world of myth. We will not talk about him as a powerful immortal in investiture of the gods. We will not talk about him as a supreme Taoist deity found in Journey to the West. We will focus on one simple question. What kind of world did Lao Zi actually live in? He lived around the 6th century before the Common Era. This was the middle and late period of the spring and autumn era of the Zhou Dynasty. By then, the Zhou king still sat on the throne, but almost no one cared. The major states fought without stopping. Alliances formed one day and broke the next. The ritual and music system described by the Duke of Zhou had lost its real power. People were restless. Chaos grew everywhere. If the early Zhou period was the teenage period of this civilization, a time when systems were fresh and order was newly built, then in the time of Lao Zi, the world had entered a tired and disillusioned stage. Everyone talked about ritual, but ritual had become an empty performance. Everyone spoke of benevolence and righteousness, but what they truly wanted was power and profit. Lao Zi saw all of this and felt deeply disappointed. He believed that Zhou's civilization had lost its direction. He never became a ruler. He never led troops. He never founded a formal school. He simply wrote a small book. 2 sections. 81 short chapters. Fewer than 5,000 characters in total. This book was later called the Tao Te Ching, or simply the Lao Zi. It is short, but every question inside it goes directly to the heart of human existence. What is the Tao? What is Te? What is good rule and good leadership? How can a person live without fighting against oneself? Does a more complex society always mean a better one? Is true strength always loud and forceful? Is retreat always a loss? To what is Tao and what is Te? The title, Tao Te Ching, can seem confusing, but you can explain it in a simple and friendly way. The Tao is the underlying pattern. It is the natural direction. It is the way things are meant to move. Te is the way you behave inside that pattern. It is the expression of your state, your character, and your choices. You can imagine it like this. The Tao, is the operating system. Te is the app running on that system. If the system is stable, the programs do not crash. If you work with the system, you do not end up fighting against yourself. For Lao Zi, the true Tao is not created by humans. It is not a pile of written rules. It is not the slogans of benevolence and righteousness that leaders shout in public. It is the natural flow of things. Water moves downward. Trees grow toward the sunlight. A baby cries or laughs before learning any words. A group of people can form a natural rhythm without anyone giving orders. Behind all of these is something invisible but real. Lao Zi calls this the Tao, and Te is simply the way you choose to move within that natural order. When you follow the Tao, you may not move fast, but your steps are stable and you do not collapse easily. When you fight against it, you may feel powerful for a moment, but the final result is often a sudden fall. 3. What does the idea of Wu Wei really mean? Wu Wei is the most misunderstood concept in the Tao Te Ching. Many people hear it and think it means doing nothing. They imagine passive living, giving up, or lying flat. This is far from what Lao Zi meant. What Lao Zi disliked most was busy and noisy action that was full of ego. He disliked endless rules, endless campaigns, endless control, and endless pressure. He disliked action driven by vanity and desire. The key to Wu Wei is not the word Wu. The key is the way you act. One type of action is constant orders, constant new policies, and constant pressure. Everyone suffers, and problems only grow worse. Another type of action is very different. You observe the natural pattern. You remove unnecessary interference. You act only where action is truly needed. You talk less and you simplify more. Lao Zi's Wu Wei is this second type of action. It is not about refusing to work that, it is about refusing to act against the natural pattern and refusing to act only to satisfy your need for control. Here is a simple way to put it. In oral style, Wu Wei does not mean the ruler takes a nap and peace appears by magic. It means using the right move in the right place at the right time, so that a very small action creates harmony and order. For what was Lao Zi pushing back against? To understand Lao Zi, you must understand who he was challenging. He was not criticizing ordinary people. He was not criticizing soldiers. He was criticizing the entire outer shell of civilization at the time. This shell had become fake, complicated, manipulative, and disconnected from real human nature. In his view, ritual without sincerity kills true feeling. People who talk about benevolence every day often lack real compassion. The more detailed the laws become, the less people rely on conscience. The more knowledge people collect, the easier it becomes to show off instead of becoming humble. So, Lao Zi raised a bold question. Is it possible that our idea of civilization is itself part of the problem? Is it possible that a society obsessed with ritual, cleverness, and complexity creates more competition, more hypocrisy, and more wasted energy? Lao Zi's answer was yes. He was not calling for humans to return to caves. He was reminding people of a simple truth. If a civilization becomes more complicated than human nature can carry, that civilization will eventually turn around and harm the people living inside it. Part 5. Why softness can be stronger than hardness. In the Tao Te Ching, there is an image that shows up again and again. It is the image of water. What is water like? It flows downward. When it meets an obstacle, it simply goes around it. It feels soft and gentle. If you punch it, it gives you no reaction. But over time, it can wear down stone. It can shape valleys and carve mountains. Lao Zi loved using softness to compare with hardness and weakness to compare with strength. In his view, even the sharpest sword will one day rust or break. Even the strongest body will grow old and bend. Even the toughest attitude will eventually meet someone tougher. But water, this soft and quiet thing, never shouts that it must win. Yet, over long periods of time, it often becomes the final winner. It is easy to understand this in our modern world. People who brag every day about how powerful they are often collapse the fastest when pressure truly comes. People who are genuinely strong are usually calm. They do not fight for attention, yet in the key moment, they remain steady. A company that shouts about expansion, disruption, and conquest may suddenly fall apart one day. A company that looks low-key but stays steady and keeps adjusting often survives much longer. Lao Zi saw something very simple. In front of time, softness lives longer than hardness. He was not telling you to turn into something weak. He was reminding you that real strength sometimes comes from not forcing things, not pushing every situation too hard, but knowing how to step back, how to go around, and how to place yourself in the right position. Part 6. what Lao Zi's ideal society looks like. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Zi describes the world he hopes for. The country is small. The population is not large. People know of each other, but do not disturb each other all the time. Tools exist, but people do not push them to their limits. Knowledge exists, but people do not use it as a weapon to show off. Life is simple and steady. People have enough to eat and enough to wear and are not pulled around by endless desires. In modern words, it is a slow society with low information pressure. It does not chase endless growth or endless expansion. It seeks stability, moderation, and a life that feels human instead of mechanical. Here, you can remind your listeners of something. We live in a world that is the complete opposite. Everything is about growth, scale, efficiency, competition, traffic, and exposure. In this kind of environment, Lao Zi's voice feels out of place and even a little negative. But this is exactly why it is worth hearing again. He is not asking us to walk away from the times. He is reminding us that when we are running as fast as we can, sometimes we need to pause and ask two very honest questions. Where am I going? Have I already forgotten what a good life was supposed to look like? Part 7. Why the Tao Te Ching still matters today. At this point, you can talk to your listeners in a friendly, conversational way. First, for individuals, the Tao Te Ching reminds us not to hold ourselves too tightly, not to place all our goals on winning, becoming stronger, or becoming faster. Leave some room for things that seem useless. Leave some room for doing nothing. Leave some room for moments when you do not have to prove anything. Second, for people in power, Lao Zi keeps warning those who rule. The more you control, the easier it is for things to fall apart. The more you try to arrange everything perfectly, the more likely you are to trigger resistance. Real leadership is about acting at the key points, rather than tying every corner of life with rules. Third, for civilization as a whole. He reminds us that civilization is not the same as complexity. Morality is not the same as slogans. Order is not the same as suppression. A mature society should know how to simplify. It should slowly remove the things that exist only for showing off, for controlling others, or for creating pressure. Now we can close the section on the Tao Te Ching. You can use a simple sentence to guide the story into the next part. Lao Zi gave us a way to look at the world. Sun Zi, on the other hand, tried to help us face the world when it becomes imperfect and to make the most rational choices in conflicts that cannot be avoided. Part 2. Sun Zi and the Art of War. Trying to keep people alive in wartime. 1. Who was Sun Zi? And what kind of book is The Art of War? Now we will leave the world of the philosopher Lao Zi and enter the world of military camps, battlefields, and armor. The Art of War contains 13 chapters. From planning to the use of spies, each chapter explains preparation before war, marching, formation, strategy, and intelligence work. The book appeared near the end of the spring and autumn period. Its author, Sun Zi or Sun Wu, served as a general of the state of Wu. He was not a scholar who sat in a quiet room imagining theories. He lived close to actual war. The world of his time was even more direct than the time of Lao Zi. War had become the normal form of communication between states. In such a world, two types of people were especially clear-eyed. One type, like Lao Zi, looked at all the fighting and the power games and asked whether we could stop playing this entire game. The other type, like Sun Zi, accepted the reality and then asked another question. If war cannot be avoided, can we fight less? Can we fight smarter? Can we trade the smallest possible loss for the greatest possible safety? The Art of War was written in this context. 2. War is the most serious affair of the state. How dangerous is war? The Art of War opens with a heavy statement. War is the greatest matter of the state. It is the ground of life and death and the path of survival or destruction. A ruler must examine it with the greatest care. In simple language, Sun Zi is saying this. War is the most serious thing a country can face. It decides whether people live or die. It decides whether the state survives or disappears. This is not something you can treat lightly. It requires careful calculation and repeated thought. This line is important because it shows Sun Zi was not a bloodthirsty person. He was not encouraging rulers to start wars easily. He was reminding everyone that war is incredibly costly. Because of this, he insisted on 2 rules. If you can avoid fighting, do not fight. If you must fight, fight with complete rationality. 3. The best victory is winning without fighting. The most famous line in the art of war is that the highest form of victory is to make the enemy surrender without a battle. Sun Zi divides victory into levels. The best outcome is stopping the enemy before war begins through alliances, diplomacy, or strategy. A lower outcome is a small and limited conflict. The worst outcome is a large and destructive battle where both sides are badly wounded.
You can give your listeners a modern example.
When companies compete, the worst strategy is to burn money and destroy the entire market. The smartest strategy is to use technology, branding, or cooperation to make the other side realize that continuing the fight will bring nothing but loss. This forces them to back off or shift direction. Sun Zi's logic is simple. War is a tool for political goals. A tool should not take control of the person using it. If you win a battle but destroy your country in the process, that is a terrible failure. For what the famous line, "Know yourself and know the other side," really means. People often quote the first half of this sentence and forget the rest. The original meaning is very complete. If you understand both yourself and your opponent, you can fight many battles without falling into danger. If you understand yourself but not the other side, you will win half the time and lose half the time. If you understand neither yourself nor your opponent, every battle is a gamble with your life. The key word is know. To know yourself is not about confidence. It is about understanding your resources, strengths, weaknesses, and limitations. To know the other side is not only about counting their soldiers, it also includes the character of the ruler, the morale of the troops, the strength of logistics, and the internal tensions of their society. You can present it to your listeners in 3 clear layers. First, every serious decision must be based on information rather than emotion. Second, the information must include both hard facts and soft factors. Third, recognizing your own limits is more important than blind confidence. This also leads into the final chapter of the art of war, which is about spies and intelligence. For Sun, spy intelligence work is not dirty. It is a tool for reducing mistakes and reducing unnecessary deaths. Part 5. Winning half the battle before it starts. Sun Zi has another very important idea. He says that a truly victorious army wins first, then goes to war. A losing army fights first, then hopes to win. What does that mean? For a well-led army, the basic shape of victory is already in place before they step onto the battlefield. They prepare in advance on several levels. They prepare politically. The home front must be stable. You cannot have soldiers fighting outside while the government is falling apart inside. They prepare economically. Food, supplies, and transport routes must be carefully planned and secured. They prepare mentally. Soldiers must know why they are fighting. They must feel that they are not being sent to die for nothing. They prepare for the terrain. They choose to fight in places that help them and hurt the enemy. They prepare for timing. They pick the right season, the right weather, and the right moment. Only after all of this is ready do they truly seek battle. In contrast, a failing army rushes in and fights first. They march out, start the war, and then slowly discover that many things were not ready. Supplies are missing. Plans are unclear. They spend the entire war putting out fires and running in circles. You can bring this idea into everyday life with concrete images and not just vague talk. At the level of a company, it looks like this. The product is not finished, but the company already rushes into marketing. They burn money to buy traffic. Customers come in, have a bad experience, and the brand collapses. At the level of an individual, it looks like this. Someone has not thought clearly about their major or their direction in life. They apply for schools and change jobs on impulse. They stumble forward without a plan. Sun Zi wants to teach a way of thinking that is like a rehearsal. Before the real battle begins, you run the battle in your mind many times. You try to find the holes and fill them in advance. Part 6. using the normal and the unexpected together. In the art of war, there is a pair of words that appear again and again. They are the normal and the surprising. The normal refers to your main force. It is your visible formation and your clear strategy. The surprising refers to moves that are unexpected. It is the hidden force that you keep in reserve and use at the right moment. Lao Zi says that you use the normal to engage the enemy and you use the surprising to win. Behind this sentence is a deep principle. Most of the time, you cannot depend on miracles. Your normal part, your basic strength, must be solid. If this base is weak, any clever trick is only decoration. You can give an example. If an army has poor training, weak discipline, and a messy supply system, then no matter how talented the general is, there is a limit to what he can do. It is like a skilled cook with no rice. There is nothing real to work with. On the other hand, if the basics are strong, if the normal part is reliable, then you can add surprising moves. You can try flanking attacks, night raids, or feints. These creative tactics will give you much better results because they rest on a stable base. The same logic works in daily life. In study, if your foundation is weak, chasing new tricks and special questions does not help much. In work, if your professional skills are shallow, playing only with office politics and fancy reports will not carry you far. Lao Zi is harsh but honest. He sees the temptation of shortcuts, yet he still reminds us that lasting victory requires a combination. You need both a solid base and flexible creativity, not just lucky breaks. Part 7, Winning Hearts, is better than breaking walls. The art of war is not only about weapons and formations. Lao Zi cares deeply about the human side. He stresses the authority and self-control of the commander. He stresses strict but fair military discipline. He stresses clear rewards and punishments for soldiers. He stresses the way the army treats the people. In his mind, an army that is held together only by forced conscription and fear can work for a short time, but it will fall apart in the long run. So, he suggests another way of thinking. It is better to attack the mind than to attack the city walls. Attacking cities hurts soldiers and civilians. The cost is huge. Attacking hearts means you break the will to fight before the bodies are broken. How do you attack the mind? You isolate the enemy ruler. You make his people see no point in continuing the struggle. You shake the confidence of his allies. You create doubt and distrust inside his own camp. It sounds cold, but the goal is the same as before. If conflict cannot be avoided, the aim is to use as little blood as possible to end it. Here, you can pause for a moment and say to your listeners, we all hope for a world that does not need books on war. But since reality is not that kind, the art of war at least sets a bottom line. If a fight must happen, let fewer people die, and let there be fewer pointless sacrifices. Part 8, where Lao Zi goes beyond war. At the end, you can raise the viewpoint a little higher. Many people treat the art of war as a book only about battles or as a simple handbook for business competition. If you read it only as a list of tricks, you are underestimating Lao Zi. You can share a few core principles and show that they apply to any serious decision or competition. First, be cautious about war. The first question is whether you should fight at all. If you can avoid a conflict, do not jump into it easily. Second, win first and then fight. Prepare what must be prepared beforehand. Do not rely on last-minute effort. Third, know yourself and know the other side. Real strength is not blind confidence. It is clear understanding of both your own situation and the situation of your opponent. Fourth, focus on the mind. Any victory that looks bright on the surface but ignores morale and public feeling is unstable and can easily be lost. Fifth, let the normal and the surprising work together. Your base must always be strong. Creativity and surprise are an extra layer, not the core itself. If you push these ideas one step further, you will notice something. They are not teaching you how to conquer others for its own sake. They are teaching you how to make fewer irreversible mistakes in a world that will never be perfect. Now we can place this episode and the previous one on one big map. On the same Zhou timeline, there are 3 books quietly speaking to each other. The Book of Songs starts from the viewpoint of ordinary people. It asks how I feel in this world. The Tao Te Ching speaks from the viewpoint of a watcher and a thinker. It asks how this world is supposed to work underneath the surface. The Art of War speaks from the viewpoint of a general who is inside the struggle. It asks how I should act in a world that is imperfect and sometimes cruel, so that I make fewer mistakes, lose fewer lives, and still avoid being destroyed. These 3 books stand on 3 different levels. One is emotion, one is philosophy, one is practical action. Together they give 3 different answers to the same age. 3,000 years later, we still read them. We still borrow images from the Book of Songs when we write about love. We still use lines from the Tao Te Ching to question whether our busy lives are really worth it. We still use the principles of the Art of War when we study competition and strategy. What does this show? It shows that people in that time were already facing the same questions we face today. How to love.
How to live.
How to keep a personal bottom line in a world full of unequal power. How to act when we must fight so that we do not destroy ourselves. In the last episode, the Book of Songs helped us hear the voices of ordinary people. In this episode, the Tao Te Ching and the Art of War helped us look at the distance between people and the world from a higher and colder angle. In the future, if there is a chance, we can take key chapters from the Tao Te Ching and important sections from the 13 chapters of the Art of War and break them down slowly. We can talk about how they were used in history. We can also talk about how they can still help you make choices and see yourself more clearly today. If you are curious about the ideas inside the Tao Te Ching and the Art of War, you can let me know. We can make a special episode that focuses only on these classics in Chinese literature. For this series, our main path is to follow Chinese history and tell Chinese myths. So, we will not dive too deep into these 2 books right now. That will belong to another story in the future. For today, we will stop here, don't go anywhere. There's more great content coming up. Easter egg. What did ancient Chinese beds actually look like? Today we are continuing our series on how people lived in ancient China. You might think daily life is nothing more than eating, drinking, sleeping, and going to the bathroom. Very ordinary, nothing special, but actually, all these small details carry traces of how civilization slowly evolved. Last time, we talked about how ancient people went to the toilet, and everyone loved that episode. So today, we are moving in a different direction. We are going to see what ancient people slept on, what they sat on, and what their beds and chairs were really like. You may think a bed is just a bed, something you lie on. But that is not the case. In ancient China, a bed was never just a piece of furniture you placed casually in a room. It was deeply connected with social structure, ritual systems, social status, and the rhythm of daily life. From the height of the bed to its size and its materials, you can actually read how people lived, how they thought, and how they treated one another. Let us start from the very beginning. In very early times, the thing people called a bed was basically a raised platform made of packed earth. Imagine a dim earthen house, the ground slightly damp and cold. People would build a small raised platform in a corner of the room, about as high as half a person's lower leg. They would smooth the top, lay some straw mats or animal skins on it at night, and sleep there. This kind of earth's platform was the earliest shape of a bed. It was not really furniture, but more like part of the building itself, just like the walls. As time moved forward into the Zhou period and the Han period, people slowly turned the bed into a separate object. It was no longer a mound of earth, but became a wooden frame, something like an actual bed. But, for ancient people, daytime and nighttime had strict rules. At night, they used the bed for sleeping. During the day, they used something different, called the Ta, for sitting, resting, talking, and reclining. To them, the bed and the Ta were two completely different things. You can think of a Ta as the ancient version of a sofa, maybe even more versatile. A Ta was narrow, but long enough for someone to lean or half lie on. A host received guests on the Ta, read books, played the chin, drank tea, and rested on it. It was light, movable, and could be placed in the living room, the study, or even out in the courtyard. The bed, however, stayed inside the bedroom and was used only for sleeping. If someone lay on the bed during the day, they would be considered rude. It was like inviting a visitor into your home and asking them to sit directly on your personal bed. In ancient times, that was unthinkable. Still, for a long stretch of history, people did not sit on beds, tas, or chairs at all. They sat on the floor. This way of living was called floor-level sitting. If you walked into an ancient home, you would see straw or bamboo mats on the ground. People sat cross-legged or kneeled on them. Low tables were placed in front of them for meals, writing, or conversation. Imagine a quiet evening, an oil lamp flickering, a family sitting on mats, slowly eating and talking. The rhythm of life was calm and unhurried, but eventually, some nobles began to feel uncomfortable. During the spring and autumn and warring states periods, social hierarchy became stronger. The nobles suddenly felt that sitting on the ground was not appropriate for their status. Sitting on the same level as servants and soldiers no longer felt dignified, so they started using low wooden stools that lifted the body slightly above the ground. This was the very first step in raising human seating off the floor. Do not picture these as chairs. They had no backrest and were very low. But the fact that your body was not touching the ground showed a subtle cultural change. People no longer lived completely on the ground. They were creating distance, a feeling of refinement. The people who truly brought China into the age of chairs were the nomadic groups of the north. During the Tang period, there was large-scale cultural exchange between the central plains and the northern tribes. They brought in a kind of folding seat called the hucheng. It was basically an ancient folding chair, small and portable, something you could place in a courtyard or under a tree. Imagine a traditional version of a camping chair. Simple structure, easy to open and sit on. This also helps explain a famous line in Chinese poetry. In Li Bai's Quiet Night's Thoughts, the line in front of my bed, the bright moonlight, is often understood as describing the bedroom. But the bed here was likely a hucheng, a folding chair placed outside in the courtyard. Li Bai might have been sitting on that chair, looking at the moon and thinking of home. The entire poem suddenly makes spatial sense that way. Moving into the song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing periods, beds and tas changed again. Beds were no longer just places to sleep. They became semi-private rooms. You may have seen pictures of ancient canopy beds or framed beds. They looked like small rooms with wooden frames, carved panels, and curtains. When the curtains were drawn, it felt like entering a private world. People slept inside with a deep sense of safety and enclosure. Tas also evolved into something called the Luohan bed. You can imagine it as a long single sofa bed with a backrest. It could be used for both sitting and lying down. Scholars in the Ming and Qing periods loved their Luohan beds. They copied texts there, drank tea there, wrote poetry there. For them, this was the birthplace of inspiration. Beds and tas were not just furniture in ancient times. They were expressions of ritual. Especially during the Han period, the placement of beds and tas showed the status and social order of the home. The bed was placed deep inside the bedroom. The ta was placed in the main hall. If a host invited a guest to sit on his ta, it meant a high level of respect. The history of the later Han even records that some hosts had special tas for important visitors. It is like giving someone the most honorable seat in the house. There is also an interesting story behind the phrase, to stay as an honored guest, which in Chinese literally means to lower the tar. During the Eastern Jin period, a nobleman named Chen Fan admired his friend Shu Zi very much. Chen Fan had a special ta for honored guests, and he kept it hanging on the wall when no one was visiting. Only when Shu Zi came did he take it down and set it in place. When Shu Zi left, he hung it back up. Putting down the ta became known as lowering the ta, which later became the polite phrase we still use today to say, "Welcome, please stay at our inn." Does that make hotel language sound a little more elegant now? The lifestyle of nomadic groups changed not only how Chinese people sat, it also transformed the structure of beds. The hucheng introduced the idea of a chair into Chinese vocabulary. In some regions, aristocratic families favored enclosed beds with 3 surrounding panels, like a small booth. At night, you could close the curtains and feel like you were in a tiny, private room. After the Tang period, an early form of the recliner appeared. Wealthy nobles enjoyed lying on foldable chairs to sunbathe, enjoy the breeze, or watch the moon. This shows that from the Temps period onward, Chinese sitting habits shifted from floor-level sitting to elevated sitting. People went from sitting cross-legged or kneeling to sitting with legs hanging down and leaning against a backrest, which is much closer to how we sit today. At this point, you can see that ancient beds, tads, and chairs were never just furniture. They reflected social customs. When nobles in the spring and autumn era tried to sit higher, it showed rising class consciousness. When the Tang's people embraced folding chairs, it showed cultural openness. When the Ming and Qing periods created canopy beds, it showed growing ideas about privacy and family life. If you put the entire history of furniture into one long line, the result is surprising. A simple bed reveals the deeper structure of Chinese culture. Picture this. In the warm glow of a lamp, a luohan bed sits against the wall. A scholar leans on it with a cup of hot tea beside him. In the courtyard, a folding chair stands under the moonlight, and Li Bai is sitting there, looking up at the sky. Go back further, and you see families sitting cross-legged on bamboo mats, eating dinner. Even earlier, you see people sleeping together on a raised earth platform, sharing warmth. Do these scenes appear clearly in your mind? So the beds of ancient China may look simple, but they held the entire lifestyle and cultural atmosphere of their time. The evolution of furniture is the evolution of civilization. That is all for today. If you enjoy these gentle, vivid stories about daily life in ancient China, keep tuning in to Chinese history and mythology. Next time, we will continue exploring the real and fascinating world of how ancient people lived.
The sky in light, Nua healed the broken heart. Fuxi traced the world's design. Every age leaves stories bright. Yaya Dynasty shaped bronze. Shang Dynasty cast oracle. Dynasty forged the great walls, and Dynasty opened Silk Road winds. Three kingdoms Dynasty turned war to tales. Qing Dynasty led ink and mountains bloom. Sui Dynasty carved the Grand Canal. Tang Dynasty crowned the world with art. Song Dynasty raised learning's flame. Yun Dynasty swept the northern plains. Ming Dynasty strengthened walls again. Qing Dynasty closed an ancient age. Every age leaves stories bright. History and myth ignite in endless light. China's history moves in mystery through the night. Footsteps of this land enchant the world in light. Kingdoms Dynasty turn war to tales. Qin Dynasty led ink and mountains bloom. Sui Dynasty carved the Grand Canal. Tang Dynasty crowned the world with art. Song Dynasty raised learning's flame. Yun Dynasty swept the northern plains. Ming Dynasty strengthened walls again. day.